Virginia Drake Shaw was born to Rivers and Elizabeth Drake in 1829. She died in 1892. The following account is her obituary, which was published in the Clark County Herald, Illinois, a week after her death. Mrs. Albert Shaw died last Wednesday evening at a few minutes past 5, after an illness of several weeks. The funeral services were held at the house Friday afternoon, Reverend C.F. Wilson officiating. Virginia Drake was born in Caroline County, Virginia, 25 miles east of Richmond, on September 18, 1829. In the winter of 1831-1832, the family moved to Illinois, going by wagon to Guyandotte, where they took a boat for the remainder of the journey, finally landing at Darwin. They moved onto a farm at Walnut Prairie, where they lived until 1849, when the family broke up and Virginia went to Nashville, Tennessee, to live with her brother Charles. She was married there on February 26, 1850, to Albert Shaw of Clark County, Illinois. Mr. Shaw brought his bride back to her old home, and they settled on a farm on Walnut Prairie, where they lived until 1867. While her husband was absent in the Army, Mrs. Shaw took charge of the farm and made a living for the 4 children who then looked to her for their sustenance. In 1867, Mr. Shaw moved the family to the old Shaw farm, on the western edge of Marshall, where they lived until October 1878, when they moved into Marshall, where they have ever since lived. 8 children were born to Mr. and Mrs. Shaw, and 5 of them are yet living. Mary, wife of Albert Porter, and Will and Frank live in Spokane Falls, Washington. Martha, the wife of A.P. Cole, and Eleanor, the youngest of the children, live in Marshall. Mrs. Shaw had been a consistent and valued member of the Presbyterian Church since 1862. Mrs. Shaw was conscious to the very end, bidding a sender goodbye and sending loving messages to the absent children. Albert Shaw died in 1901. I will also be sharing his obituary.